The US has imposed 50% tariffs on a wide range of Canadian goods. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Ottawa will match the duties dollar for dollar. For the first time, the US tariffs will also cover goods protected under the US-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. Callie Callahan reports.
After failed 11th-hour talks in Washington, D.C., Dominic LeBlanc, the Canadian minister responsible for trade with the US, leaves without a deal, prompting a return to cross-border tariff war. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer has pinned the blame on Canada, saying it's a missed opportunity as the US had offered its neighbour the best treatment of any major exporter to its market. The failed talks mean Washington's new 50% duties come into effect. They apply to Canadian exports worth nearly $20 billion, which is about 5% of everything the country sells to the US. The measures target a wide range of products, including alcohol, furniture, dairy, clothing and sporting goods. In the final hours before Saturday's deadline, President Donald Trump had maintained a deal was close.
We have to take care of our farmers. The farmers are very important to me. And the deal with Canada is moving along, and we should be able to have a deal with Canada.
The trade duties come on top of those already in place on some of Canada's biggest sectors. Steel and aluminium are subject to 50% tariffs, while vehicles face 25%. In a statement, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced he had suspended negotiations because last-minute changes in the US proposed terms were unfair, uneconomic, and called into question the reliability of any deal. He also said Canada will match the US tariffs dollar for dollar to protect its workers and businesses. A war of words leading to tit-for-tat trade levies between North America's largest economies once again. Callie Callahan, Al Jazeera.
Jairo Yunis is the Director of Policy at the Business Council of British Columbia. He joins us now from Vancouver. Good to have you with us. So first of all, what went wrong last minute when it seemed from Donald Trump's statements like a deal was imminent?
Yeah, I mean, during last week, it seemed that we were going to have a deal. There was an agreement in principle. Now we don't know what happened really, but it is a disappointing outcome. Trade wars really leave businesses, consumers, and workers on both sides of the border worse off. There are no winners during a trade war, but this doesn't change the homework. We need to continue to work to get these tariffs removed while at the same time work to strengthen our economy, making sure that Canada becomes one of the most attractive jurisdictions for business investment in the world, which will provide us with that leverage and that bargaining power that we need in these very high stakes negotiations.
50% is a big number. I understand a number of goods will also be targeted by the US tariffs. But I've also, perhaps you can clarify how much of Canadian exports to the US will be subjected to this 50% tariff. Are we looking at significant impact?
Yeah, what we've analyzed is that this new round of tariffs will cover around $20 billion worth of exports to the U.S. That's around 5 to 6% of all of Canadian exports to the U.S. That includes things like value-added forestry products, industrial, electrical and electronic machinery and equipment, things like plastic, alcohol, furniture, a whole range of products that are supposed to be included in the CUSMA exemption, but that now unfortunately are going to be tariffed. Around 90,000 jobs are at risk given this new round of tariffs. Here in British Columbia, where I'm in, that's around 11,000 jobs in local communities where just one plant is the whole local economy. So it is quite concerning, and hopefully the Americans come back to the bargaining table and we can have a better outcome on this one.
And tariffs also cover goods which were supposed to be under the US-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. How significant is it that even those category of goods now are facing tariffs of 50%?
Yeah, it is significant. I mean, just today, this morning, around 88 to 90% of all Canadian exports to the U.S. Were entering the United States market duty-free. with this new round of tariffs, that number is going to go down to around 80%. So it's significant. We still have the Kuzma shield, but it's important to remember that we also have what's called the Section 232 tariffs on steel, aluminum, cars, several duties and tariffs on softwood lumber, and now this other new added round of tariffs. So the trade disruption is significantly impacting Canadian economy. It is also raising the price for American consumers and businesses. Tariffs are a tax on production and consumption. So hopefully both parties go back to the bargaining table and can negotiate a better outcome that's good for both parties, because this long-standing relationship has been significantly beneficial for both countries.
Well, the Canadian Prime Minister for now is vowing to respond dollar for dollar. But is the reality really that the US has much more leverage in a tariff war with Canada? 3 out of every 4 Canadian export dollars go to the US versus only 1 out of 7 in terms of US export dollars that go to Canada.
Yeah, I mean, Canada does have the right to defend its interest. But retaliatory tariffs are a tax on Canadian consumers and Canadian businesses. It will increase the price of goods here in Canada, of business inputs as well. The question is whether this action will bring the Americans back into the bargaining table. If it does that, then there might be a case for it, but we have to be honest about it. Retaliatory tariffs will increase the prices for Canadians, but that doesn't mean that the homework has changed. Again, we have to continue to work to strengthen our economy, because that is the only way to make sure that we have more leverage and more bargaining power when it comes to these very high stakes negotiations.
All right. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your thoughts. Jairo Yunis, Director of Policy at the Business Council of British Columbia, joining us from Vancouver.